But to my left, I'm going to introduce Alex Sinclair. Basically, you've read Batman or seen Batman the last 20-ish years. You appreciate Alex's work.
That didn't work.
He is one of the premier artists, in my opinion, great colorist, probably top 5. I also know that he's got a little, I ran into it by accident, Olo has your set, the marker set, so a little plug for them too. Directly to his right is Jorge. There he is, bro hugging Mr. Del Toro. As you know, he did the Book of Life. Amongst other things, I ran into him downstairs with Mr. Humberto Ramos signing a very awesome SDCC exclusive print. He's a very popular person. He's also from my hometown, Chihuahua, which is great.
Hell yeah.
We can talk about that later. And to our further to my left, we have Mark London. Again, one of us, publisher and is a co-director, co-creator, co-everything. It sounds, when I read the bio, it seemed tiring. It seemed very tiring. But it's great to have a publisher. Again, we're not just trying to highlight artists, and we're not just trying to highlight those that create the comic, but those that help sell it, those that come, the conduit between both retailers, artists, publishers, printers, everyone in part of that circle, because everyone has a piece of it and everyone's important to it. And there's a lot of us in that too. And then finally over there, not finally, but almost finally, Tony Rodriguez. Tony works on both Eisner-nominated Stray Dogs. He's also, if you've ever read anything basically from Bongo Comics, that is Mr. Tony. He is fantastic. We've had the pleasure of doing some variants with him too, through our company, so we're very happy to have him here. And then the Iñaki brothers are supposed to be here. I don't know where they went. They were here earlier. But one of the things that came up this year during this panel is you see these 9 characters. According to ChatGPT, those are the most famous Latino superheroes. Not in any particular order.
I worked on 3 of those.
Jorge, we have one from Tijuana.
Yeah.
But, I had to ask my dad, who probably my was. I was 40 years. But this is, according to them, what represents us as superheroes. Wow. So, take that out. I'm a fan of Speedy Gonzalez. So this is kind of where I wanted to launch off and go, where are we represented?
And by the way, all male.
All male.
Oh yeah. Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, but it's a good question. Like, where are we? Where are we represented? Like, if this is what AI is telling us, ChatGPT is telling us, this is where we are. Obviously we have Miles. These are great art, great artists, and great stories. Some of these are very old, right? Stuff like my dad read. But where are we?
And I think this is the problem that we're running into today with algorithms, where they can only reference existing things or existing things that have been successful. And if there's no Latino superheroes that have been successful, then the algorithm goes, well, they're not successful because no one's made them. So it becomes chicken and the egg. No one takes a risk. So all those things tend to happen when someone at a studio has enough of a vision to go, all right, we're going to take a risk on this. And the problem that we run into with Latino stuff is this belief in Hollywood that it's a monoculture, that all Latinos are equally represented. And that's like saying all white people are the same, or all Asian people are the same. Like, these are very different cultures. And so when one project comes through and gets on the big screen, even the Latino community itself goes, we never get to see ourselves, but that's not me, right? Nothing can encompass all the cultures, it's impossible. So then that one thing gets one shot, it doesn't do well. For example, Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle doesn't do well. Immediately Hollywood goes, see, we told you guys, Latino superheroes don't work. And that's the problem, right? The greatest sign of success is being allowed to fail, right? When no offense, but when a white director makes a movie and doesn't do well, no one goes, you'll never direct again. But when a Latino director does that, or a superhero that's of an ethnicity or a woman, something that's not the mainstream doesn't do well, the judgment falls so hard on that one thing.
Yeah, but it's very unique to our culture, I think, because we definitely see other representation in pop culture and in comics too, and there's never this fear of it's a risk, right? It's never like, at least it's not as abundant to us. Like, for me as a retailer, I have to cater what I order and what I produce to my audience, right? I have to be conscientious of the fact of, hey, like, these people like this, and these people like that. I can't paint everyone with the same paintbrush. But, you know, when I'm looking for something very specific, I know the type of artists and creators that I can look for, right? And I think, like, I was going to ask Mark, as a publisher, how does that work? If someone comes into your office and says, I have a good idea, are you framing it in the sense of, I need to sell to the masses? Or am I framing it as, hey, this is a great story regardless of where it's from? Or is it, hey, I need to find something Latino, I need to find something Asian? Is there a push in the comic book industry of, hey, let's find that thing that we need in order to fulfill whatever it is? Or is it, I just want a good story?
A lot of people, they just think that they can get, or they might think that it's going to be the best story. And I don't think that anybody has the crystal ball. But so what we try to do is always just on a case-to-case basis and be like, okay, this is what we're going to publish. This is what it resonates with us. We kind of go by feeling. It doesn't have to be like, okay, a political push. It doesn't have to be a race push. That's not how we operate as a publisher. Because you're saying, I mean, it's just like, although I'm Latino, I don't want to just like kind of be like the Latino company. I think that we can just bring a good example to everything that we're doing as a publisher and be like, hey, everybody can coexist. So we're always publishing what we consider is the best of the best.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, we see that, I mean, we definitely see that for comics where, again, I can only speak as a retailer, we're pretty non-discriminatory. We want to provide something, if someone's asking for it, you know, I'm not looking, oh, I gotta find this person. I gotta find the right person, the right, like the right art, right? And for us, like being a retailer is the conduit amongst all of you guys, right? From the artists to the publishers to the end user, like we're the conduit. We're the ones saying, hey, my audience wants this, right? And that's why when we had a chance to do variants for Stray Dogs, I was super happy that all three of you were on that. But I never thought, oh, it's Tony because he's great because he's Mexican. Let's go do it. I'm like, no, it's art's awesome. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, how do we push that? Hey, like there are parts of us and parts of our culture that can permeate into the art, can permeate into the story. It doesn't have to be a heavy hammer. But at the same time, there's people who definitely crave, hey, I want a Latin superhero. Hey, I want a Latin story. I want to be able to see myself in what's going on. So how do we do that? How do we do as both artists, creators, publishers, even fans? Like, how do we do this where it's not so heavy-handed and it's not like you said, like all of a sudden you put yourself in a position where people can tell you no, right? Because that's really what it is. People can tell you no. Oh, that's too hard. Or, that doesn't work. So how do we do that? And it's, for me, it's listening to the audience and listening to the creators. Like the you know, when you look at Batman or you look at your characters, you look, like, I see the person. But at the same time, I know that. Like, oh, it's Alex, it's great. You know, he's Latino, he's this, he's that, but I see Batman. Right? It's Superman. Mm-hmm. So is there, I mean, this is a loaded question, is there a benefit to say, I am the artist, I'm also Latino, and I'm also creating these iconic characters? Is there a bonus to that, or can it be a deterrent?
For me, it's been my career, right? In school, I was told, you keep doing this Mexican stuff, you'll never get a job. Right? That's what my teacher said. And they weren't being racist. They were just saying, nothing like this is being made, so you're going into a workforce and a field where what you want to do isn't being done. And it took literally a producer going, I love your stuff, but I'm not gonna hire you because my show doesn't have this stuff. The only person who's gonna hire you is you. You have to be sitting in my chair. You have to be the creator, you have to be the director, you have to be the writer. go pitch stuff. And honestly, that's how it started. And for me, the culture, I mean, I'll tell you my secret. I basically Trojan horse the culture into my shows and my movies. When I pitch, I never lead with culture. That's a huge mistake. And I never lead with, in a world where, that's bullshit. That only works after they make the movie in the trailer. Movies are not about worlds, movies are not about plots or shows. They're about characters. And if you really break it down, they're really about relationships, right? So for example, 3 really quick examples. When I pitched El Tigre, I said, it's a kid whose dad is a superhero, grandpa's a supervillain. He adores both of them. He doesn't know which one to follow. By the way, he's a Mexican kid. Book of Life, it's a retelling of Orpheus. A guy who's a musician is gonna go down to the underworld to rescue the girl of his dreams, and turns out she's not dead. How's he gonna come back? By the way, it takes place on a Mexican Day of the Dead. Maya and the Three, it's a crazy, this was a pitch. Lord of the Rings with brown people. It's a princess who's gonna die to save the world. By the way, it takes place in Mesoamerica. So I use the culture as the canvas, and the story is universal. And the example I always give is Seven Samurai. It's my favorite movie. I've never been to Japan. I don't speak Japanese. Why the hell am I that connected to that story? Because Seven Samurai is about 7 warriors who team up to save these ungrateful farmers from bandits, and most of them die, right? That could take place in Mexico during the revolution. It could take place in the future. It could take place in Asia and Africa. It could take place anywhere. It's a universal story. So universality is the way we connect with everyone. And the more specific you get, the more universal you get.
So I'm going to ask Alex a few very specific questions. So how's it working with Jim Lee and all that fun people over at DC?
That's probably my most asked question. What's it like to, Jim is the guy who discovered me. He's the guy who hired me first, who saw something in those really crappy samples I sent way back when. But he's also one of the most generous, giving, and a mentor, now a peer and a friend. And so it is work, but he is well aware that this industry, the comic book industry, is a collaborative medium, and that the collaboration between each and every one of us is what makes the product. And so he loves being part of that, and he works to that end with anticipation of when he's penciling, he knows what, he leaves room for the inker to bring their thing, and he leaves room for the colorist to bring their thing. And so he's one of those guys that helps you grow as an artist by including you in the process, instead of expecting you to just fix up or finish up what he's doing. And so he's obviously an extremely successful, well-known creator, and there's a reason for that, and it's because he's a big part of the industry, and he lives it. He just doesn't talk the talk, he walks it.
Yeah, every time I've met him, he's always been very gracious, and everyone speaks very highly of him.
Yes, yeah. He's well aware that without the fans, none of us would have a job, and so he makes sure that the fans are also included or known that we're very grateful for that interaction that we have with them as well.
Yeah, it's great. Yesterday we ran into Todd McFarlane, and he's the same way with Jim. He treats every single interaction like it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to him, which then turns into the biggest things that happened to that person.
Right.
It is really inspiring to watch, because some people aren't like that, but he treats every single interaction like that.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it makes a difference. And Tony, I'll ask you the same question, because you worked with Tony Fleeks and Trish, and you guys created a great series.
Tony what?
What is it?
Fleeks?
Yeah.
Fleece?
Oh, Fleece, sorry.
I always correct. Tony never corrects anybody, and I always
that's
correct
right.
myself. Fleece.
Fleece. You guys did Stray Dogs and doing Feral. If you guys haven't read it, it is absolutely fantastic. It is a great series. I recommend it to almost everyone that I meet who says I want to start reading comic books, or what do I show to my friends, or what do I read. I always say go to Stray Dogs.
Oh, that's
I think it's
sweet.
awesome.
Thank you. Oh, well, thank you.
And like, it's just like Alex was talking about, how is that process to collaborate with, different people, and in that process, how do you put yourself in that process?
I'm in a really weird spot with it because if you guys don't know, I'm one of the artists on the book. Trish Forrester is the other artist, and Trish is the one that draws all the cute animals, the dogs, the cats, and whatnot. And I draw everything else. So we see a building, we see a car, we see a person, if we see something she doesn't want to draw, then that's something I do. And she's, and she does a really great job, don't get me wrong. So the thing is, when I work on the book, I don't feel like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put the best of me in it. Here we go. Look at that tire. That tire looks awesome. My only job is to service the story. So what I basically do is I do my best to make sure that when I'm done with what I do, Tony's happy, because Tony's the director, he's the boss, he's the guy that makes sure that everything's all laid out for us from day one until we get done with the next issue. So there's a lot of me in it because very rarely do I have to draw full backgrounds on even books I draw. I figure out what I want to draw, and then I go, ooh, this character will look cool here, this guy will look cool. And then I fill in the background with stuff that just needs to be there to round out the image or the storytelling. But because it's the first step in the way we work, it literally has to be that canvas that basically when I'm done with it, we hand it to Trish, and then Trish can do what she needs to do on it. So Tony directs all of it, and Tony is very, very involved. I work very closely with him. As a matter of fact, just being here in San Diego, I was in LA last week with Tony, and we go over all the layouts. He hands me everything, and it's literally like, this is what we want to see, make sure we hit this, this, and this. And it's how we work. And we started this originally with Stray Dogs. It was a little bit different on that one because Trish was doing redraws over all my backgrounds. And so now people actually get to see all the work that I do. So it's actually very fulfilling because I can at least go, oh, I did that. That's what I did right there. Yeah, so it's fun. It's good stuff. But like I said, I don't necessarily, my only job is to service the storytelling. That's what I'm doing. And then of course, Trish knocks it out of the park with what she does. So it's very collaborative.
Yeah, our business is collaborative by nature. Right?
Yes.
There's no way around it. You can't be siloed. Because at the end of the day, you still need a UPS driver to take the comic from point A to point B, right? So at least one other person's involved in what you're doing. But another question that's come up in previous panels has been, and this is probably for Jorge and for Mark, how do you take my idea, and you kind of already kind of answered this a little bit, and go to Netflix or go to your publisher and go like, this is what we should do, right? Because a lot of people think that it's idea, story, Hollywood, right? They kind of forget that there's this whole middle ground of, dead bodies and disappointment.
The audience, you have to find your audience. The only way something like this is going to make its way to Netflix or Fox or whoever it is, DreamWorks, is if the audience receives it and they like it or love it, or at least share it with other people. Once upon a time, a lot of comic books were just handed around, like GIs and stuff, because that's all they had. Now with social media and stuff, it's kind of harder to get things in front of people because we're getting bombarded by so much stuff. So the one way that we can actually get to the point where we're actually doing a Netflix thing is if the people who read the books share the books with other people. That doesn't necessarily mean buy the book for them, but at least go, hey man, I checked this out, I think you'll like it, because we hear that a lot with our book. People are just constantly sharing it, and they come up to me and they go, I've never even read a comic book before, and I'm reading your book. I really like what you're doing. And so generally what ends up happening is Tony will sit there and he'll be like, oh, well, shoot, if you like our book, check this one out. And he'll basically pitch them something else, and now they're in the comics. So,
Yeah, it seems that, I mean, I have an 8-year-old, so he's not quite there yet, but we've been trying to feed him comic books, and he's like, oh, this is great. But like, I see my friends who have like high school age children, like, they're just all about television. They're all about, they don't have the patience to sit there and read, especially single issue, right? Single issue has become, at least for a retailer, it's become a little bit of an issue. No pun intended. People don't want to wait. They want the whole story
Yeah.
at once. They want graphic novels. They want trades. They don't necessarily want, I mean, we see it with Netflix too, right? Everyone wants to see Stranger Things all at once. And they don't want to wait, episodically wait, you know. And has that become, is that why things like Kickstarter and crowdfunding has become so popular? Because now the artist and the creator can take their IP and be like, look, I can fulfill this need, and then eventually take that maybe to something else. But for me, I definitely see the shift of people wanting graphic novels. People want the whole thing at once.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, personally, it's like because I'm old, so I'm used to not having a smartphone. I'm used to not having, you know, the distractions. I'm used to going to the comic book shop or the bookstore, rather, or 7-Eleven and pick up my comic books as they showed up. So I definitely got to the point where I had patience for the next issue, you know, and I remembered what I read last, and when I saw the new one, I'd pick it up. I don't know exactly what the right answer is going to be for stuff like that. Like I said, it's like I just know that I do my work, and hopefully people pick up on it. But yeah, I mean, crowdfunding and Kickstarter and all that, there's a lot of people who have done a lot of really amazing stuff with it, but there's also, just like on the internet, there's so much of it out there. How do you pick and choose what you're gonna, ooh, this looks interesting, but maybe you can't throw some dollars at it, you know what I mean? You wanna see the finished product, and it's hard to do that when you don't have a finished product.
Sometimes with Kickstarter, you don't get that,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to burst up anybody's bubble, but it is what it is. I mean, you're saying that, yeah, Kickstarter is probably gonna get everybody to binge a series, or that they're gonna be able to get everything. That's not the case. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We do want to have our content readily available. Yes, that has been a consequence of Netflix, but the reality is, and us as a publisher, I can't remember the last time I was excited about a show besides Game of Thrones, when every single episode came out weekly, and you can actually go into the office or talk with your family and be like, did you watch that cliffhanger? Did you just see that? I mean, that was amazing. I mean, I can't wait for the next episode. Now we're getting everything in books. And I think that we have lost something with the Weekend Warriors. Every month trying to driving people to the retailer and actually telling them, okay, this is coming next, and this is exactly what you're gonna get. And building the anticipation of something great. I think we lost that. But yeah, I don't think that a lot of the people that are publishing books right now, the answer is Kickstarter. Because a lot of those Kickstarters, unfortunately, that's the reality. I mean, they're not fulfilled.
No, that's definitely true, and for me it was Lost. I used to watch Lost religiously, and then I got really angry in the last season.
Yeah.
I was just not happy with the whole situation. But yeah, I mean, there was, and I remember as a child, I don't know if anyone's from Chula Vista, but my dad used to take me to 3rd Avenue News on 3rd Street.
Yeah.
So my dad would get like a stack of like New York Times, LA Times, like he would get all like he's smarter than I am. And then I would just go straight to the comic book rack. And I just have vivid memories of smelling the comic books and smelling the newspaper, like the news, like, it's just a vivid memory. And I was just telling my son about Toys R Us, and he looked at me really weird. He's like, there's a place that had nothing but toys? And I'm like, yeah, that was hard. Then we had to walk him into Macy's, so it was like little teeny tiny things, Toys R Us. So again, like, the idea of Kickstarter, I work with a lot of independent creators that have leveraged Kickstarter to push IP that they already have, or IP that they got back from a publisher, or IP they got back from like a distributor, and they're still trying to move that forward. But at the end of the day, not having a publisher back you and be able to help you, especially with editorial, especially with things that some creators just don't have access to or don't know how to do, that seems to be that's where things kind of fall apart.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've had this conversation, they don't know this.
Unfortunately, yeah. But I think that it's important to you guys, especially if you back up a project or follow a series, that you actually know what you're getting. That you're really backing up a certain creator, that it's going to be able to deliver, or I know that things happen sometimes, but that has been the case. And I'm not saying that Kickstarter is bad, because even for us, I mean, we picked up a few series that have actually done successful or been successful during Kickstarter. And we published them, and they sold really, really well for the creator. So it's just a matter of, okay, how committed are you to actually deliver on the product or the promise that you actually sell?
I mean, one of the biggest creators right now in animation is Viv Medrano. She's a Salvadorian American. She had a show called Hasman Hotel and Hell of a Boss, and she pitched it everywhere, every studio. Every studio rejected her. Told her it was too weird, too horny, too furry, like, too gay. Like literally, they said all that to her. And she crowdfunded it, built a community, put it on YouTube. It exploded. Bidding war between Adult Swim, Netflix, and Amazon. And she owns her show. And now she has 2 shows and a bunch more stuff coming. And that's a Latina in the U.S. did this. So she bypassed the studio system, the old traditional route of you have to allow someone to make something in the old studio system, and she hacked the system. And now 1 million people are trying, but she is a pioneer. She did it. So crowdfunding does work, but the amount of effort that goes into it is humongous. And for every success, just like with everything, there's 1,000 failures. So it's a numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be not just the comic book business, but Hollywood in general, where there's so many, like, I'm sure all of you have heard it, this is such a great story, this is such a great read, this is such a great comic, this is such a great artist, why haven't they done this? Why hasn't mine happened? And people sometimes just think that, like I said, it goes from the idea to Hollywood in a year, and then they're walking, they have a Hollywood star, right? Like, it just doesn't work that way, you know? And there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the whole entire process of comic books. I'm sure all of you definitely had sleepless nights and missed deadlines and unhappy publishers and unhappy editors, and I definitely have unhappy, customers when Diamond doesn't show up on time. I'm not gonna show up on time anymore. Too soon. But just to lighten it up a little bit, because I know, like, for us, it's really important, at least for me. We do a lot of variants, and we do a lot of stuff for a lot of different publishers, all the way from DC to Marvel, all the way down to a lot of Image Books, Boom, everyone under the sun. Because I like stories, I like independent stuff, I like horror stuff, I love the stuff that a lot of people don't like necessarily, and everyone loves Batman and Superman, but sometimes I like the little crazy stories, and I like the stories a little bit more nuanced, and I like the little bit of uniqueness. So when we have the chance to work on independent comics, for us it's great. It's awesome, because I know that I'm selfish too, like I want to read this. And if I have my clientele wants to read it, it's a perfect match. So at the end of the day, where do you guys, let's go down for a second. Where do you see print going? Because print for us is very, I've seen it in the 10 years of a retailer where it's kind of, and then single issue is kind of, then trade's gone up a little bit. You'll always have the pillars, right? You always have the Marvels and DCs of the world. But everything else seems to be kind of in a stasis, which is we're trying to figure this out. So for us, it's very difficult because some people might not know this, but as a retailer, we have to order 2 months in advance. So we have somewhat of an idea what's going on, but not really. And then those 2 months, a lot of things can happen, right? So we're trying to figure out how do we navigate those waters. And there's things that can happen, like distributors disappearing or publishers disappearing, or something happens to an artist or something happens to a creator. So for us, it's very difficult. But at the end of the day, you guys here are the ones that create all this stuff for us. So where do you think this is going?
Good.
To me, it's look at manga. Look at the past, look at the present, look at the future. What happened in Japan is a manga artist would write and draw their comic, build a fan base, build the volumes, build the story arcs. Fans would obviously consume it, get addicted to it, follow these storylines. Animation companies would license the manga, and fans who love the manga would watch the anime and go, I wonder what they'll keep and change. And it's all been written. It's all been figured out. The closest we have on this side is something like Invincible, right? Where the comic, or Walking Dead, right? These comics that kept going, and then you adapt them, and the fans of the comic go, I wonder what they'll change in the animated series or in the live action show. And people become fans of the show by the comic. People who are fans of the comic watch the show, and the ecosystem keeps growing. So to me, that, I keep going, where are these manga artists, the American or the European and the Latin American versions of people who draw and write and can make these new worlds and characters that people connect to? And there's no Marvel and DC in Japan. It's literally the creators are the gods. It's not the publishers. So that's where I would look. I go, happening over there and it's happening here, why aren't we doing that? And honestly, I think the American perception is you're either draw or you write. There's this weird binary thing where drawing and writing why can't someone do both? Where it's so common in other parts of the world. But here we've split it up. And I think it's because in order to keep up with the demand, you basically have to break down the job into different chunks. But in Japan, the guy who does One Piece does all of it. We're an episode 1,000 of the anime. Netflix live action show is bigger than ever. Like, it's crazy. So I would look to Japan.
Yeah, I do some other work with my friends. We have a horror book that we put out, and then in this last year we put out of all things, a Tremors comic book. Like, who knew that anybody wanted a Tremors comic book? And we found out about it through a Tremors convention. Really? Tremors fans? Yeah. Holy shit! Where the hell have you guys been? So really quick, the thing was, we found out about it because they had a Tremors convention, and my friend was at it, and while they were watching one of the movies, they were talking about the thing about there's a comic book in the movie, and he goes, after the movie, he goes, hey, where can I get one of those comic books? And he goes, that was a prop, that's not a real comic book. He says, no, I had a Dark Horse logo on it. It's a real comic book. He goes, no, we had a friend at Dark Horse who made it for the movie. It's just a prop. It's not real. And so then they kept talking, and the guy, the producer, turns in and he says, so after talking with him for a little bit, he goes, so what do you do? He says, well, I make comic books. And he goes, well, if you want to make comic books, you want Tremors comic books, you make them yourself. So we have like this handshake deal to make these things because these people at this Tremors convention wanted them. So the problem that we were talking about doing this stuff is, like you said, we came up with a way of doing the book so it was like an anthology. So we could have a person working on this story, another person working on this story, a person working on this person. And what we realized is, even though we weren't like basically holding one person to producing an entire 30-page comic book, we noticed the chinks in the armor when we couldn't get the artist to turn into 4 pages that he was supposed to do, and the other guy to turn into 6 pages. So the more pieces you have in the puzzle of producing something, the more chances of things falling by the wayside, which means things don't come out on time, things don't get out to you guys on time, and it just becomes a little bit of a hassle, So I also think, like here in the States, I don't think the fans, like in Japan, they are rabid for graphic novels. Not comic books, graphic novels. They love it. They have comic books for all ages. And here in the States, we got a nice mix of people in here, but what I'm saying is I think a lot of people still think comic books are for kids. I still meet people who, like when I talk about the stuff that I do, they go, your kids buy the comic books? I say, no, we got adults. There's adults that buy. Hey, look who just showed up. So yeah, that's another one of those problems. It's like, it's hard to see the numbers of your single issues dropping, because even though Farrell's doing really well, we would like it to do a little better so that we could continue to do it and make sure that we're getting it in on time. Everybody, Michael just showed up. Hello. And the thing is, everyone is waiting for those trades to come out. And it's wonderful, it's great, but sometimes if we don't have decent numbers on the books, we might not actually get to that next trade. So it's, it's real scary. Like I said, tell your friends, if you like a book, share it with somebody, because it definitely helps. Michael, what do you think about that?
I agree with everything you said the entire time, wholeheartedly.
So everybody, this is Michael
I
Calero.
apologize. I was double booked. They changed my panel time, so I just ran from the other side of the hall to get here. I swear, I just didn't hang out.
So Michael is a co-founder of Massive Publishing. Full disclosure, I've done about 10 variants of Massive throughout the years, so it's a great publishing company. And this, one of the reasons I wanted Mike and Mark on here was they both have unique ways of putting out product. And that's the uniqueness that we can bring into the, into the business, is where, Massive started with the thing with Whatnot, then it became independent, and then they started doing, hey, we're going to be a conduit for those guys that have this dream of, let's make a comic, right? Yeah. So for them it was, hey, let's find those diamonds in the rough. And then you have Mark, who's from Mad Cave, which is fantastic, and like all these great ways of both adding traditional and non-traditional ways to get stories out. But at the end of the day, all those stories have to end up in my hands so I can sell them to everybody else, right? So just to bring everyone, Mike up to speed, we're talking about like, where do you see your business, your publishing business, like in the next few years? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about how the audience has changed and how we consume, books. Is this something that we're going to have to get rid of single copy and go straight to trades, or is this something where, who knows what's going to be in the future?
I'm the person who's secretly been reading for that for like 15 years, but that's because I like consuming things as full stories. The issue with that, where you might have already talked about that, is retailers, comic book shop retailers, can't support that system right now. Like, it just doesn't. And then, they're trying, where they're kind of bread and butter is find people who are passionate about an artist or a writer or a book and get the support. There's some people, myself included, I'll buy like 4 or 5 variants of the same book. You don't get that with trades, and the way that retailers order trades, it's one at a time. They'll order one, and once it sells, they order the next one, they order another copy, and it's a much slower burn. So it doesn't work for the publisher to some degree, because you have to front a lot of that production for like a long-term burn. And then for the retailers, it doesn't work because they're, they want to have the variants. They want to be able to make money. Maybe not 1,000 variants, but 4 or 5 ain't bad. For me personally, where I see my business now is really supporting publishers. Massive as a publishing company, we had a lot of success very quickly, which was awesome. And I could just focus on building Massive as its own individual, thing for the next 10 years and be totally, fine with that. But right now, the thing that is hurting in this industry is a pipeline to get from smaller publishers and medium-sized publishers and studios to the comic book shop. With, not to get so into the, tabloids of it, but Diamond, who was the main distributor for many years, just left a bunch of people hurting financially with no way to get their books in the shops. And, in January, I was in a position where I was brought into Lunar for Massive Publishing because of what we'd done in the industry. And I saw the opportunity to leverage that to be able to get other people into Lunar that probably wouldn't, I think to this day, wouldn't be, Lunar just couldn't scale up, in that way. To take on 30, 40 publishers all at once would be a really disruptive thing to that business. And so what I did, I founded a company, a separate part of our company called Massive Indies, where we distribute we do the solicitation, we get those books to market for those other publishers. And so now we're up to about 35, 40 studios and publishers, and that's going to keep growing. So now I kind of see myself as, I just get to, champion other really great books. Hey, that's me.
That's it. Well, and some people, Diamond was the only place that I could get comics pretty much for a very long time. And then over the last few years, that broke up to, Penguin Random House, and that pulled up to Lunar, and then there was always independence, but then all of a sudden there was this fracture of who a retailer could order from. Before it was just Diamond, pick whatever you want, shows up in the box.
Yeah.
And then that all disappeared a couple of years ago, which for us was terrible, because now you had 3 different systems, 3 different delivery times, 3 different types of delivery systems, 3 different types of payments, it just all of a sudden became this giant hassle. But you had to navigate it, right? Because the customer can't see the back end of all that because they don't care. They want the comics on time. They don't realize that it became a very, very laborious system for retailers. And I'm sure for publishers who have to input all this stuff, it's probably just as bad too. But
Yeah, they don't want to slaughter the cow, they just want the meat.
yeah. But again, for all of us, it's the customers first, right? We want to build that loyalty. They can't see that we're like a little duck on a pond. You see the duck kind of floating, he's chilling, you see his feet underwater at 100 miles an hour. That's a retailer pretty much every Wednesday. So, it's just for most of us, it's been a very interesting last few years, to say the least. But, so we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. We're going to open up some questions in a minute. Most of you guys are on the exhibitor floor somewhere to be found. I know Alex, you're in Artist Alley, right?
Actually, booth 4505.
4505. Please stop by, go sign whatever you want.
I have and I will. Yeah.
Jorge was signing with Humberto. Do you have any more?
I'm doing one at 5:30 at booth 1901 at Republic of Lucha. And then I'm going to Tijuana tonight, and I might never come back.
That's a sure. Mark, Mad Cave is in the right smack in the middle of the common floor.
Yes, we're at booth 2806. I have a signing at 6 p.m. for Endless Night, so I hope to see you all there. Please, thank you.
Tony, are you on the floor today?
I'm just walking around.
There you go.
It's my favorite time. I just walk around the con. So yeah, so if you see me, stop me. I'm fine. No problem.
Mike, are you guys on here? You were my booth mate last year.
Yeah, so I'm doing a panel tomorrow. We don't have a presence on the floor this year. It's like the first year in a while where we haven't been here, but we do have some online exclusives that we did with Sveta Shabina for our book Pin Apocalypse. I'm working on a book called Detective Kaiju right now, which is what I'll be doing other than having drinks at the hotel bar. I will be writing another issue of that. So if anybody follows my work, Detective Kaiju is a spin-off of Quested, and we're about to announce dates for the 3rd season of Quested.
You guys also rebooted Zorro, right, with Sean?
Yeah, we did. So last year our big push was Zorro Man of the Dead, which was like, as a Hispanic creator, that's like as cool as it gets to be able to have any kind of interaction with the Zorro IP, and I just, and to have it with Sean, who's, he's really one of the best artists in comics.
Yeah, I remember I'm from here, but I ended up in Portland, Maine, of all places, so
Right.
I single-handedly moved the needle on Hispanics in that whole entire state. But one of the first people I met there was Sean. I met Joe Schmelke, and then I met Sean, and meeting Sean is like, it's just like meeting Alex. It's like, this is like my childhood all over again. Like, seeing the person that can redo Joker's history. It's like, not a lot of people can say that, right? And it's very interesting when you're one of the few Hispanics, especially in comic books, in that whole entire state. It's definitely been eye-opening for me.
I think I got you beat though.
Oh, you're in like the South. Huh?
I'm in Louisiana.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't even get a burrito around. So every time I come back to LA, all I want to do is eat Mexican food, and all my buddies are like, dude, we eat Mexican food all the time. I'm Mexican, dude. What the fuck? I'm like, come on, dude, I live in Louisiana. Give me a break.
Do we have time for 1 or 2 questions, or are we?
One question.
All right, anybody have a question?
Wait, sorry, who has the best question?
Yeah, who has a question? Go ahead.
Oh, she's got
Oh,
a
there's a
mic.
mic. Let's go to the mic.
I'll do it.
No, go ahead.
Hope it's worth it. Okay, so it's mostly for the publishing side, that question, and we talk about adaptation and how like hard it is like to actually get the story to film or TV. So I'm curious about your opinion on transmedia rather than adaptation. So how can you like build on the same story but through different medias? And the easiest one to think is film or TV. But what about a podcast where you can access like a backstory of the characters, or like a web page where you can also access like different types of content, and maybe like you were talking about building that anticipation for something great, and like letting the audience access the stories and the comics through different avenues. So I'm curious about your thoughts about that, and if you see that as something possible and doable right now.
What's your name? What?
Gisela.
Gisela. The publishing has to stand on its own two legs. I mean, it's the most important part. I know that sometimes, we talk about film and we talk about adaptations, and we all see the Netflix and the Hollywood side of things, and that's fantastic, that's great. But at the end of the day, your story, what you're putting on paper, whether it's a graphic novel, whether it's a comic book, it needs to stand on it has to actually be its own thing. And then hopefully, it could just try to mutate or transcend to other types of media, whether it just be film, animation, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's you guys who decide, where we're taking the story, where they're taking your story, if it becomes successful. But always try to pick a medium and focus on it and become the best possible thing that you can do. And then hopefully, because if you just go in and be like, okay, I'm just doing this for film. Look, we've been doing this for 11 years, and unfortunately, we never seen it happening. I know that a lot of things that I have said during this panel kind of like doom and gloom, but it's the reality. We all see the Hollywood and we all see the Netflix and everything, and we've lived it with my publisher, Chris Fernandez. We've seen the ups and downs of everything. But you just have to pick a medium and be like, okay, as passionate as you can, and whether you just be like, okay, this is gonna be my work, it's gonna stand out as a graphic novel, fantastic. Yeah. The other things will follow. But you can think that you're doing a comic book or a graphic novel, so it's just gonna get into Netflix. That's not gonna happen.
But I think it's more like, if you can basically sell it, if you do a podcast or if you do something else in addition, because some people, again, I meet so many people who just will not read a comic book. They will pick up one of my trades, but they won't read the floppy.
Right.
So if you can do anything to get people to show interest in what you're doing, and you're doing it yourself, I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just that I don't have an example in my head that goes, oh, the best way to do it is do this and do that. Like he just said, I make comic books. I've been making comic books for 30 years. It's what I love to do. I enjoy doing it, and I like to think I do a good job at it. If I could figure out a better way of getting the comic books into people's hands, I definitely would do it. And maybe you're the person who can come up with a way of doing it. I don't know. Everybody's got a different way of doing it.
So I want to piggyback on that from a totally different perspective, though, because I think everybody up here, we've been working on comic books a long time, and so we have this view of how it's done. But I think now there's also people who don't have that like rigid view of comics that are finding success in some of those other ways that we're talking about. They're starting a podcast talking about a thing that they're starting to write and getting input from the fan base. There was the gentleman who wrote the sci-fi book where he went on like a message board and got other scientists and stuff to just input, and then ended up writing a novel that became a film. It's like there's other ways to get into it. The thing is, whether you're doing it for money or if you're doing it to make a great property. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it for money, you're not going to make money doing it that way, right? If you have the time and the passion to, like, say you have a character that you love and you really want to like build it up as a transmedia property and start with doing YouTube videos, maybe doing Patreon and Kickstarters. Like, if you have the time and the passion to do it, that's a totally viable way to do it. It just doesn't conform to what Mark's saying. It doesn't conform with the traditional publishing model. So you might end up having publishing be the last thing in that sequence.
Yeah, you can do webcomic too. I mean, I just saw like some of the creators out there, they've never published a single page, and they're making a ton of money, and they have direct connection with the audience.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you, everyone on the panel.